Another day here of best ball on the Stochastic YouTube channel. Thanks to our friends at DraftKings. We're going to do another 20-round draft today in the world of DraftKings, of course, where you can go over right now to the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app, get yourself a chance to play for a share of $15 million. And once you do that, you get yourself another free entry for another share of $15 million. It's a great place to play on, and I'm going to be playing on there right now. Oh, I have audio playing on my laptop. There have been tech issues galore here to start the day, but the good news is we do have this draft coming up in front of us right now here. And if you could actually draft along with me here, we have 4 out of 12 entrants in this draft room. So ready to go in the world of DraftKings today. And of course, the big things you're going to see on DraftKings, $2 million prize pool, or not a prize pool, $15 million prize pool. $2 million to first place. Your top 10 entries or top winners on there are going to be also getting $100,000 as a minimum. So really cool stuff going on DraftKings Best Ball this year. And the main things on DraftKings Best Ball can be similar to the other Best Ball sites. You're trying to stack up as much as you can. It's always going to be an important thing. You're trying to be aware of average draft position. We also have some new things, new wrinkles added. We do have schedules out. So that's another important thing as well. We now know the schedules for the season. So if you want to really be a nitpicker and you can go in and go a little more into the schedule, strength of schedule deep dive, try to find out what players have an advantage because of the matchups. But in particular, what you're looking for are those playoff weeks and trying to stack for your week 17 in particular, because that's where all the expected value is, where you materialize any shot you have at actually winning money. But you also have week 16, a key advance week there to materialize that EV. Week 15, another key week as well. So another part of the best ball process, kind of stacking up all these things accordingly. No pun intended, because you are literally making QB stacks for the most part. But you're also trying to layer on top of yourself these sort of factors that matter a lot building a best ball team. And that's things like, again, the correlation, being a sort of slavish to ADP for the most part, and also soaking up value when it's there, in particular on DraftKings, where you'll find those opportunities a lot. And then being aware of things like the schedule, being aware of the fact that all the prize money is in that last week. So you're building lineups that are meant to spike, or that are meant to spike there for the end of the season. That's what you're getting on DraftKings Best Ball and Best Ball everywhere. So keep that in mind. We do still have 4 out of 12 entrants on here. So again, literally, if you want to draft me today on DraftKings, you can. And I'm actually going to put in my Discord as well, in case we want to get some folks from there. But I'll put the alert out there. Live now doing a DraftKings Best Ball draft for any who wants in. There we go. So look, it's an open offer for all you guys out there that want to play, but I'll stall here. I'll talk a little bit. We should talk about the week 17 matchups a little bit. And actually, I think because I did this correctly today, let's see if we can log me in and I can show you guys my little week 17 schedule while we wait. Did I miss an S? I did miss an S. No, why is it taking me over here? Now we're going to my Google Docs. We're having a real fun stream here, guys. Yeah, tech issues because we've Stochastic to shift some stuff around with their StreamYard logins. I also don't want to log in on a tab you guys can see. That seems kind of dumb. So let me do this over here. Try to log in and show you guys my Tails account, which does have a little card for week 15, week 17, week 17, week 16, week 17 matchups. Tails Insider picks. Here we go. Now we're cooking. Look at this guy logging in, sharing screens. This is a little thing that I put on my phone, basically, and it's a thing if you do join my Tails package. I don't know the exact link for it. It's like you search Chris Spags on there, just Spags, you will get there. Basically, it's a sheet for me, and I guess you could also just screen grab your YouTube right now and take it for yourself if you want. Basically, it tells me here who's playing who in week 15, week 16, week 17. Week 17 is the one that I really want to memorize and have down pat. Along the way, I'll start to get week 16 in my brain more, week 15 in my brain more as well. But basically, for how this goes, knowing this stuff is a really important part of things. The schedule released yesterday, an important part of things. People, too, go that next level beyond as well. We'll look at Vegas totals for week 17, try to get a read on things that way. Domes, you have a guy like Jared Goff who's playing in 3 dome games in the playoffs. That's an important thing as well to note for a guy that has struggled sometimes historically in the cold. One thing you get from me in my Tails package, but in general, this is a thing to keep in mind as well if you are playing on DraftKings or any best ball sites. I feel like I'm doing a bit like, are we sure that there's only 4? Has nobody entered a best ball draft in this time period? I'm going to refresh the tab to make sure nothing weird. Okay, 1 spot left. There we go. That made me feel really insignificant. See that nobody entered the draft. Please enter this draft on DraftKings. Get a $20 entry fee here. You're shot at $2 million up top, $15 million prize pool. And DraftKings, to their credit, doing a lot of good stuff this year to give people free entries in this tournament, extra bonus entries, including just when you sign up. They're also giving these free entries in other terms as well. Their play action, they gave away entries too, I think, during a happy hour yesterday, where if you played an entry in the big tournament, you got 2 play action entries for $3. really nice deals going on in DraftKings. And obviously this is sponsored by them, so do have to sort of bow with the altar a little bit. But in reality, like for me, it's really nice something that's been in this DFS space. If you guys have been a stochastic watcher for a while now, I've been doing DFS content for, here we go, we're on the clock or coming up now. I've been doing this content for 7 years and change now. And, it's nice to see the DFS sites kind of wade back in, show some love back to the community after they've prioritized a lot towards sports betting. DFS still a lively thing, and best ball, another fun way to spend your money if you're willing to let somebody hold it for 9 months. One of your good friends hold it for 9 months. All right, so we're on the clock here at pick 9 coming up. So we got a ways to go. Of course, the top of the draft board, going to be no surprises here. And one thing that I said in the intro for the last video, which I should probably do every time out, best ball is a site, or as a concept rather, not figured out or quote unquote figured out in the same way that DFS is. Even though DFS, obviously, you guys know in a given slate how hard it can be. And sometimes the glory as well. Like, yesterday I had a lineup there, an MLB that was top 3. And then, 1 home run for Max Muncy. You're down to number 16 in a, field of 10,000 or whatever, 20,000 people. Very many people in the MLB tournament. DFS is still a game, though, where you feel like you give yourself a shot to be live. Best ball, the big benefit you have is that if you go in with structure, you go in knowing that ADP is your gospel here. ADP is your equivalent of your projections you're using. Also, the exposures you have in your lineups, if you are putting in 150 drafts, that's the same thing as your expected ownership you would have in the DFS slate. There's a lot of parallels for people out there that are, coming here every day to play stochastic DFS, to play NFL DFS, obviously in the other sports as well. So for best ball, you're going to hear a lot of talk of there about the other products that are out there that are going to, make you better at drafting and whatever. The reality of things you just need to know, and that anything that these products will tell you, is that correlation within your team matters. Being mindful of ADP value, soaking up that value when it's there. If there's a player 12 spots after ADP, you're probably better off taking that player in a lot of situations. That's another thing to keep in mind as the dog drops a bone here. Excuse me. Otherwise, you'll have to deal with dog whining throughout. Nobody wants that. But in general, those are sort of your main principles here, where you're trying to soak up value. You're trying to give yourself the best team. If you take a player, let's say Jamar Chase, it'll never happen. Jamar Chase falls to pick 8 in a room. That's like getting a player who's normally $9,000 on a DFS slate. It's like getting that player for $7,000 because they're just much cheaper than they would normally be, and what the expectation is of their performance would be. So, kind of me just stalling here until we get to the picks and can actually talk about stuff. But that's the overview kind of stuff I'll talk about here up top. And in particular, schedule release, that's a really big one for the old best ball community, people sweating it out. And obviously, NFL teams doing their best job of their videos, even though the Colts had to back down. Sad. So I hate to see it. Hate to see the Colts giving in to big Microsoft. I don't know. I didn't even know Microsoft owned Minecraft. So you learn something new every day. But we got a pick coming up at pick 9 here. So I did feel like a draft that was not my best one, frankly, last time out in our first draft here on DraftKings. Frankly, I've had some killer ones on stream before. I've drafted finalists in the DraftKings Best Ball Millie on stream before. So I, in general, feel like Zero RB has carried me further on DraftKings in the past. That said, Zero RB, I would say out of vogue a little bit this year with how running back ADPs, I think, are more accurate and appropriate line than they've ever been. That's a positive thing. But, we'll see what we get in this pick. Definitely going to be in a wide receiver heavy spot coming up here, unless you want to have some fun and Ashton Jency comes to us. Elite Neighbors goes pick 7. Fun to see that. A lot of good outs for him, whether it's Jackson Dart starting or Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston. I think you have a good shot at seeing all 3 QBs this year. Pepper Prince takes Jency. We did get news today that Amon-Ra St. Brown going to be playing Minnesota in week 17. That does seem like a nice matchup to have if we are considering these things a little bit more now. Derrick Henry, new contract for him, getting paid $25 million in guaranteed new money. That's a positive cosign for the amount of work he had last year where he was very efficient. But I am going to go Amon-Ra St. Brown here. He's a click that, frankly, on some of the other best ball sites out there, goes a little bit later in rooms. I think it's just people are tired of clicking him, which is kind of insane given the fact he's really only been at this level for a year or so where he's getting drafted so highly. He was great last year. I think your big concern is you have a new offensive coordinator coming in with Johnny Morton over there. What's he going to do in his version of an offense? He's been talking up Jameson Williams and his speed and wanting to have the best year out of him. So does that maybe affect the pie a little bit for Amon-Ra St. Brown? Front office also talked up Isaac Tesla, who they drafted in the draft this year. And no, he's not aligned with any controversial figures or companies that's stock could be suffering out there. But he is a guy with a very similar name. Extra A on the end, though, so it's a little bit different. But he's not a guy that graded out that well as a prospect in college. So does he come in and take a meaningful slot role? Because that's where he should be playing for maximum efficiency based on what he did in college. And does that take work away from Amon-Ra? Does it mean that Amon-Ra gets moved out wide more and maybe has a different upside he's had in the past? We'll see, because this new offensive coordinator with Johnny Morton there could be somebody that doesn't rely on the slot as much as Ben Johnson has historically on his team. So key things there that would maybe make you not want to take Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I'm still cozy with him at pick 109. McCaffrey and Henry go, obviously going to be very popular picks for people that have been playing football for years. Wouldn't want to say casuals. I think certainly there's sharp players that'll take those guys as well. Clint Kubiak, new offensive coordinator for the Niners, talking pretty highly of the run game and using McCaffrey aggressively. Would be nice to maybe get an RB in here to balance our team out a little bit better, but Nico Collins feels pretty good. If you're not getting Nico, I think trying to target Jaden Higgins later in the draft. Noel as well. Jalen Noel in a draft would also be logical. Christian Kirk still an option there too. Let's go Nico. I like Nico. I think Ladd McConkey, PPR-wise, could be a little bit better. But Nico is a guy, if we kind of do the analogy that sometimes I do in my brain, is somebody that does play NFL DFS with a lot of fervor and regularity, playing pretty much every main slate on there. And obviously main slates, including the showdowns too. Would say that for me, you have that kind of reference. You think of Nico Collins, like, this is an 8K guy. Like, does Ladd McConkey feel like an 8K guy? I'm not so sure about that. Drake London, I think, could be an 8K guy this year with Michael Penix, in year 2 here, getting a full year of run out for himself without really having to look over his shoulder quite as much, even though Kirk Cousins is still there. He's there as an insurance policy at this point. He's not really there in any real way. Let's say that for Nico Collins, I think that, he's a player that I feel really good about in the spot. Obviously, Puka Nacua, if I get him, I'm comfortable with him over Nico. But Nico over McConkey, Nico over London, Nico over A.J. Brown, I'm willing to take that shot this year. I think Houston fixes some stuff after they clearly faltered a lot last year. Shout out to the chat as well. Appreciate guys like ATX Bearcat, longtime stochastic community member. Appreciate seeing him here. And if you guys are new to best ball, feel free to hop in with any questions. If you're a vet of best ball, feel free to be toxic like people are right now in the best ball community. But I don't know, feel free to hop in. Give me whatever you got here. I do like to rely on the chat for these solo streams. And we'll be booking some guests at some point, but I do want to get in a regular flow here, figure out what we're doing, and then start to bring people in who are not under, competing deals with other companies and whatever. But we got some interesting players going at this point of the board. Bucky Irving is somebody I will talk about going at 210. I feel very strongly about Bucky Irving. I think really the main thing for me with Bucky is that was really big on him last year. People who followed my Splash Play channels, which I do drafts on regularly, be doing a bunch of drafts tomorrow over a bunch of sites on @SplashPlayPod. If you want to check that out tomorrow, I should link it at some point in the chat, but I'm not going to do it right now. Basically one of those things for me where last year I was so right about Bucky Irving, taking him for basically free in drafts, where on some of the other sites out there, he was going the 150s. On DraftKings, he was going often in the 170s, 180s. Because people didn't like Bucky Irving that much. I had really strong feelings for him, emotionally, romantically, but also because of the fact that he was so good at Oregon. High EPA per target, high EPA per rush player. Also high avoided tackle rate, which is to me the most important thing in your leap from college to the pros, because that's your stickiest thing you're going to have is guys, they can miss a tackle, in college, they can miss a tackle in the pros, especially if they're coming from the SEC or any sort of high pedigree kind of scheduled, all that. But basically for Bucky Irving, put up 1,500 yards in a year where they didn't want to use him as RB1. They had a need for him. They had talked in the offseason about wanting him back with a lot of elusiveness and all that. But people were really not into Bucky Irving, thought he was too small. The RAS testing, the relative athletic score for him was not very good compared to some of his peers. He's also small. But again, knowing what he did in college at Oregon, playing good competition, and also, again, being efficient, high EPA player, and also being a guy that had the high avoided tackle rate, he was somebody I believed in a lot. But then he puts up 1,500 years and people now are like taking him pretty highly. And I think it's still too low. Look, I think he's a lot more Jahmyr Gibbs than people realize. And the fact that he iced Rachaad White down the home stretch, kept Sean Tucker at bay, I think are all positive things as well. So I'm very high on Bucky Irving. If he's your first RB off the board, I think that looks pretty good. I've had builds a lot on other draft sites out there where I've taken Saquon and Bucky Irving as a start. I feel comfortable with that, even though I certainly want to make sure to get adequate wide receiver capital after that. But Bucky to me is one of my biggest stands again this year. So I'll say it out loud on this stream, because if you guys are watching these streams for as long as we're doing them, hopefully all summer, you're going to hear a lot about Bucky from me, because I just love the dude. We're on the clock again here. Very wide receiver dominant start so far. We do have more receivers up top. James Cook, who I think is very live for a holdout, is also here. Our room has been pretty frothy for QB, so I don't think it'd be crazy to take Jaden Daniels here. I know my face is skeptical in the thumbnail. For the record, our team at Stochastic makes the thumbnails. I don't. Jaden Daniels and Bucky Irving were my two big stands last year, and I'm very comfortable going back to Jaden Daniels again. So he'll be my pick here. Washington during the playoffs be at the Giants for week 15. That should be a good matchup. I think a more shootout prone team this year is what I'm expecting from New York. Philadelphia in week 15. That should be now a battle between two NFC East Titans. And Dallas in week 17, a team that I think they'll probably kick the ass of in week 17. I like the run out for Jaden Daniels. I would like him better with McLaurin, who I think is still his top target. We do have Deebo Samuel later in the draft to stack him up with. We have Zach Ertz. We could also take the running back correlation with a Brian Robinson or an Austin Eckler. So with Jaden Daniels, I'm pretty comfortable in him again. And really, you want to know anything about me? These were the three guys I drafted the most. You want to know anything about me? Three guys I drafted the most last year: Bucky Irving, Jaden Daniels. Nailed those. Marshawn Lloyd could not have nailed that one less. But if he had played, he would have crushed. Yeah, I mean, you have to say that, right? New to best ball, is it like a fantasy draft or is there more to it? So it's like a fantasy draft that you don't have to check in on. That's a big part of the DraftKings pitch, is that you set your lineup once, you have to touch it again. So it does combine that fantasy football season-long component to it. It's 17 weeks of play. On DraftKings, you end up in playoff pods for week 15, week 16, week 17, where you have to compete against 12 people a couple times, then you're in a 1,000-person final. So it kind of, to me, combines all the formats together, where you're taking a lot of your stuff, your season-long things. You don't have to, match up players every week. That's a positive. You have to switch lineups. That's also a positive. But the biggest difference really is that you are trying to build a team that not only has the ability to advance and, be competent enough to advance, but also has that big upside to hit, enough for you big down the home stretch. So the more you do it, the better you'll get. The more you watch stuff and get a feel for how people draft teams, the better you'll do. But that's the most I could say for that. All right. So we got Jaden Daniels, Amon-Ra St. Brown. We've got a falling Marvin Harrison here. Pretty big ADP discount with 7 spots. Joe Mixon would make more sense for this team, but I think we're having fun drafting some wide receivers. So I'm going to go Marvin Harrison here. A guy who I do think last year, you could certainly critique the situation for him. ADP for him throughout the entire draft process was also a little bit high with him going, 1-2 turn for most of the year. But he was great at Ohio State. And I mean, he definitely had the advanced analytics to back it out. The target earning in particular looked good. He did regress a little bit when, it wasn't Stroud at QB, but you give him some grace for that. I think really the main thing for Marvin Harrison, and I wish he were cheaper. I know I said this, I think the last time I did a stream on Stochastic. For Marvin Harrison, and a lot of times when guys don't have that successful year one, they get thrown out with the bathwater a lot. They fall in ADP precipitously. For Marvin Harrison, he didn't fall in ADP. I mean, he fell relative to last year, but we're talking about him still going around, your Garrett Wilsons, your Mike Evans, against around guys that have maybe some question marks, but are still top receivers. Even though he is falling compared to last year, I think if he were going more of a Quentin Johnson kind of fall, that's where I think he'd be really valuable. And maybe that'll happen in the summer as more, casual players come in. They just go ew, Marvin Harrison. They all talk like Alicia Silverstone and Clueless. They go, ew. And they declare that all the players are not fetch. But for Marvin Harrison, I think he's one of those guys to me that the profile's there. Again, some good coach speak so far about him being used more by the Arizona coaching staff. McBride, frankly, being good enough as well. Those are things that I think will have a lot of upside for him, hopefully this year and moving forward. This kind of start for Cash LeQuay, not the kind of start I think you want to hit for the most part. He's getting some value. Joe Mixon here, a few picks after ADP feels pretty good, but you are really burying yourself when you go this many RBs in a row. You want to have some receivers. I think I'm a little receiver heavy relative to the modern best ball ecosystem right now with starting 3 and a QB in my first 4 rounds. But 4 RBs up top, you're really giving yourself no potential to get the true game-breaking receivers. So even if you don't want to be somebody like me here, where you're taking Amon-Ra, you're taking Nico, you're avoiding guys that are bell cow RBs. I'm willing to take my shot with a cadre of mediocre RBs and hoping they get there and get the volume. But in general here, if you load up on RB this much early on, you get away a lot more with loading up on receiver early than you can 4 RBs in a row. And people too, last year's data, I think will throw people off a little bit, where it's really the first year in large scale best ball where RBs and taking RBs, 3, 4 out of the top 5 rounds where that actually worked out. Because, the top receivers last year just didn't spike enough early on. They buried themselves in terms of advance rate. Obviously ended up coming through a lot down the home stretch. And there were still some outliers to at receiver that you really did need for portions of the year. It's one of those things with the data, if people just follow last year or just what they saw with their eyes, you're going to see a lot more people doing RB heavy starts, and it behooves you to balance your team out a little bit better. And if you're like this guy here, Skins, you better hit wide receiver hot and heavy. This guy, 5 RBs in a row. I mean, anybody can still advance, but like you're probably donating at this point. So sorry if Cash LaQuay is in the audience, but my job is to tell you guys things that are not great habits. That's like effectively a really bad team being built there. Bijan, I love, but it's like you're taking Bijan. He's going to do the majority of the work. Even if you want to take Bijan, Josh Jacobs, and Kyron and say, these three are going to make my lineups every week, and then one guy will make the flex, then you're done. Then that's it. Then don't take another RB again, basically. Maybe take a free one round 18, 19, 20 or something like that. But you don't want to take 5 in a row. You're just burying a position for no reason. You're completely undoing the point of taking a Bijan Robinson as well. But people are going to draft how they draft, and that's theoretically free money for you if you're out there and you don't draft like that. Guess you have to pay attention to the bye weeks. You do have to pay attention to bye weeks, but less than you would think. Frankly, a lot of teams advancing or not advancing. There are sometimes you'll be in a pod and your breath, your ability to advance is really based upon a few points. A lot more often, though, you lose by 100 points or something. That bye week and not paying attention to a bye week is not really the part that's going to put you over the top or behind it. We have currently 1 QB, 3 receivers. RJ Harvey is a really frothy rookie prospect right now. People think he's going to come in and be a combination of Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. I'm not sold on that. With RJ Harvey, though, there are some positives, and I actually will. So I have to pull it up on this screen. I'll show you guys one of my little data sheets I looked at here. This is all data from Sports Info Solutions, a great site out there with really professional caliber data that I'm lucky to have access to for my Football Outsiders days, running things over there. So we can see here RJ Harvey. Not a great avoided tackle rate at 21% is okay versus the stuffed run here, 15% rate. 0.2 EPA per rush, good. 0.2 EPA per target, good. 0.33 EPA versus a stuffed box there, 8-man box is also good. Positive rushing EPA at 0.58. Didn't get targeted enough in the red zone there, but overall, he's got positive EPAs everywhere. So I'm not out on RJ Harvey by any stretch, but I do think downgrading for competition a little bit, it's easier to be efficient against everybody when you're playing at a South Florida kind of situation. I think those are the main things. Harvey, though, great athletic profile and obviously the draft capital for Denver. I would say that by the time the summer rolls around, there's a decent shot he's behind your Audric Estimes, your Jaleel McLaughlin's for third down works. Like that can happen, and there's probably going to be a bye period for him then. Right now, with these drafts all opening, DraftKings big tournaments on the other sites as well, people are really frothy for the rookies, and that's something to be mindful of. That said, I think we're just going to be frothy for the rookies here. I'm going to take Travion Henderson, another rookie. So he's going into New England. He's another guy as well. And I guess we looked at the data for RJ Harvey. You could look at it for Travion Henderson. Travion Henderson, not a high avoided tackle rate guy, despite being an elite athlete, despite being a really fast guy, and an efficient runner with a 0.23 EPA per rush. Still only a 19.8% avoided tackle rate. And when you go to the pros, you're looking usually about half of your college avoided tackle rate. So it's not a great number for him. 0.09 EPA per reception, also not that great for a guy who's supposed to be your third down back, potentially with a lot of juice. Only a 23% avoided tackle rate for comparison. Jahmyr Gibbs is about a 60% avoided tackle rate guy in college. His last year before he came out. He was good versus an 8-man box, good in the red zone with a 0.4 EPA there. Travion Henderson, to me, the biggest things you're looking for are like guys who got volume in college tend to get volume in the pros. But for players this year, like Henderson, like Judkins in particular, neither got bell cow workloads in college because they were splitting with each other. They got drafted because they have good athletic profiles and there's upside there. But the biggest predictor of volume in the pros is volume in the college. Even a guy like Chase Brown's a good example of that, where he got about 30 intended touches a game. He was at Illinois. He wasn't very good getting 30 intended touches a game, but then he ends up falling ass backwards to a situation in Cincinnati where he's getting 20, 25 touches a game. That's sort of how that works throughout the trajectory of things. So for Henderson, that'd be my concern for him. But the positive for him is that you have Tennessee coaching staff coming in and a Josh McDaniels offensive coordinator situation coming in. They're going to run the ball a lot. They're probably going to throw some bullshit checkdowns a lot. You have a lot of risk there for Amandre being the guy who maybe wins the coaching staff over the beginning of the year and is the more trusted back. But at this point, we just need to get some RBs in. So we'll take 2 rookies and hopefully they'll be good and fun. Who knows? Guys, if you appreciate this content, if you get any value out of it, show some love, hit the like button down below, subscribe as well to the Stochastic channel. Obviously, the channel definitely weighs itself more for DFS because of all the content here. So hit that like button and hopefully we'll get some more love for best ball on the channel. And again, we're partnered with DraftKings on this as well. They've been a great partner to be doing this with because, again, they're showing love back to the community, giving you some bonuses for when you are putting entries in. That matters a lot to me because some of the other sites out there that are front runners don't really care about the community as much in that way, even though they like to kind of talk that talk. DraftKings is walking that walk with the deals they have, including the fact if you sign up here and draft one entry in their Best Ball Millionaire, you get another one for free right away. So that's 2 shots at $15 million, one of which for free. So check it out at DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app, or obviously DraftKings.com will work just as well. It's where I'm drafting on. But check it out. DraftKings is a good product this year for best ball. They're doing the best they can, and that's nice to see. We'll keep an eye on the board here. 3 picks before I come up next. Shouts to all you guys hanging out with me here. Appreciate all the almost 200 people watching live between the various platforms. So shouts to all you guys hanging out. And we'll be doing these streams at 3 p.m. Eastern, Tuesdays and Thursdays for hopefully the whole summer, but at least the indefinite future for now. So show some love again. Come back here. I'll be here doing the best I can, give you guys takes. And we are on the clock. Chris Olave, a guy I like a good amount, though the QB situation maybe makes me like that a little bit less. He goes off the board. In terms of ADP, Baker Mayfield does not correlate with anything. I feel like we could use some more real RBs. I feel okay about our top 3 at receiver. You know, Aaron Jones, a player, again, knowing that we have a nice Week 17 matchup versus Detroit, assuming Aaron Jones can be healthy and his hamstring doesn't melt off the bone. Though I say that as somebody who is 40 years old and greatly injured my hamstring, trying to dust my child because we were racing at my in-laws' house. And I, an idiot, do not sprint very often, thought, yeah, I'll sprint up this hill. It didn't work out. But Aaron Jones, history of hamstring issues too. Maybe not the kind of guy you want to make a bet on for Week 17. But I do like him to get that matchup versus Detroit in Week 17. You have Jordan Mason coming in for Aaron Jones. That's not a great thing either. But no rookies. Nobody's like a real threat. I think Jones will be trusted a lot as a guy who did get good volume last year in the red zone. Aaron Jones last year, I think, was quietly he was a secret weapon, but he was a guy that I played more in DFS. People realized, or people also wanted to play. But he had 3.6 intended red zone touches a game last year, 1.1 targets, 2.5 rushes. That's pretty good work. And Jordan Mason definitely at risk of taking some of that red zone rushing work, especially if Aaron Jones isn't efficient at all. But, you know, I think it's still going to be a good offense for Minnesota. JJ McCarthy was a guy I liked a lot coming out. I think he's a player that'll really blossom into the role, even if year one probably leans on the run game more. So Aaron Jones, I'm pretty cozy with. Let's see what we got here. Let me try to even out this board a little bit more. Got a pick coming up. So we hit 3 RBs in a row. Again, we're trying to be more balanced today with our 3 wide receivers start alongside Jaden Daniels. The bad news is we didn't get any good Jaden stacking so far, so we're going to have to really stretch for that. More good RBs here with DeAndre Swift. Ricky Pearsall ahead of the very highly paid Brandon Ayuk. Don't know that I love that. Kind of thinking DeAndre Swift here. A little bit of an ADP value. Nobody else really correlates. Johnny Smith, the tight end, could be okay. I'll go Swift. So 3 receivers early on, 4 RBs since. Trying to balance team a little bit better here to account for DraftKings ADPs. The team so far, we got Jaden Daniels at QB, RJ Harvey, our rookie in Denver, Travion Henderson, a rookie in New England. So we're probably not getting a lot of points from those guys early on to be your assumption. So trying to get some more projectable points is part of why I'm taking guys like Swift and Jones after that. But a receiver, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, Marvin Harrison. I feel like, last year, that's 3 guys who would be going around the 1-2 turns. So that feels okay. Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift, who has somehow avoided the offseason getting anybody of note coming in, which I would say is one of the bigger upsets of this offseason. Really thought that we would end up in a situation where Chicago, traded up for an Ashton Genty or just took him out of spot. Thought we were in a situation potentially where we ended up with anybody really besides DeAndre Swift. Like Nick Chubb, I guess, could still go there. They don't like these guys in training camp. But at this point, it feels like you're getting Swift and Roschon pretty reliably as your 1-2 punch. Kyle Monangai, their 7th round pick from Rutgers, is not really a dude I think is going to matter. So that's how that looks. EDK updates, we could search by team. Remember, there was a lag last year. Let's see. We got Bo Nix on the board. Broncos. Yeah, you can't search by team yet. Can you search by Denver? No. So you can't do that. You are correct. Hopefully they'll fix it. Look, again, it's another thing too, where if you do enough drafts, you don't really need that as much because you just sort of know offhand who the guys are trying to hit are. But obviously, being able to access players quickly, that UX stuff, always an important thing. And to DraftKings credit, the UX has gotten better. Like just be candid about it. I was critical of DraftKings UX on mobile in particular a couple of years ago. And now I feel like it's as good as anybody else's out there. And frankly, I will say the alerts are faster for DraftKings, whereas other companies maybe got slower. So that's a thing with DraftKings as well, where you can tell when there's effort being put in if you do this enough time. And for DraftKings credit, again, a lot of effort being put in, which is what you're looking for, really. What are we looking for here? We got Jordan Mason going to pick 97. It makes sense that he and Aaron Jones would even out a little bit. I just think Aaron Jones is safely your RB1 there. Jordan Mason was fine enough last year. Actually, let's look up Jordan Mason's numbers. Jordan Mason last year, negative 0.02 EPA per rush, which is fine given the amount of volume he got. Negative 0.37 EPA per target, better than you would think there, but he was not targeted a lot. Only 9.4% target per out run. 18% avoided tackle rate. That's pretty good. And then the red zone, 2.8 intended red zone rushes a game. No targets. He just never got that full McCaffrey role, even though he did crush in DFS for that point. Aaron Jones last year, also a negative 0.02 EPA per rush, but again, at the volume, that's fine. 0.04 EPA per pass or per target. That's also good for a guy getting a good amount of passing targets thrown his way. 13% avoided tackle rate. We are in Joe Mixon town there. Not a lot of shiftiness, but that's what happens when these running backs get old for the most part. Besides, I think Derrick Henry, who was closer to 20% last year. Anyway, I'll look up that in a second. We got a pick coming up here. Derrick Henry is 20.3% on the nose. All right, good for me. Really, the things that your weed-addled brain can still do with esoteric football player stats will always impress me. Kyler Murray didn't come back, which is fine enough. We don't need to take him necessarily. We got Loveland here. We got a lot of tight ends here. I mean, frankly, Higgins, I am really growing on Higgins as we go along. Higgins getting guaranteed money as a later pick, really the first guaranteed money. And not really, I'm not saying that like an exaggeration. He is the guy to get the first guy to get guaranteed money as a second round pick. That's awesome to see. And I think Higgins too, like the analytics are really good. The fact to me that he grades out as a Nico clone, also they've paid Nico relatively big money already. So I don't think he's a lever against Nico, but I think he's going to be safely your outside receiver no matter what. And probably can't play in the slot when you have Kirk and Noel there, guys who should mostly be playing out of the slot. But Higgins and Nico is a stack. Obviously, we would like to take Stroud if we can at some point. We'll see when that aligns. And again, big QB run here too. Jared Goff went real fucking early. I thought I was going to have a shot at him later on, but geez. This is the thing too, paying attention to the room you're in. When you have this many QBs going at this point, maybe a time where punting Stroud to 129 for me would not be a logical move given the big bet I already have on Houston. And Jayden Daniels is going to carry a lot of water for us anyways, in terms of scoring. So I could also punt Stroud on that logic, but let's see what we get. All right. So Stroud would normally be going at pick 115. We're at pick 112. I think we just got to bite the bullet and do it. It would also be entirely possible to not take the QB for Houston and then try to add on another stack on top of that. But I think we have a concentrated enough bet on Houston at this point, especially with having less receiver capital, with only 4 guys in so far. The Nico and Higgins bet is big enough that I think we just take Stroud. So let me give the team a read here because we got a few minutes, or not a few minutes, but a little bit of time before we pick again. We got Jayden Daniels at QB, unstacked so far, unfortunately. 2 rookies are our first RBs off the board, but definitely high capital RBs. My concern will be that both these guys drop an ADP throughout the summer when they're not immediately the starters week 1. Because those are the kind of market movements that happen a lot throughout the course of an entire draft season when you are drafting from April through August. But RJ Harvey, Travion Henderson as our RBs to start. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, Marvin Harrison Jr., big value on Harrison, which I like. No tight ends yet, so we're going to have to make that up with volume later on. Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift, I think give us more projectable volume overall when we're worried about the rookie volume to start the year. And then Higgins and Stroud to complete our Houston stack on top. So we're probably done at QB. Jayden should cover up a lot of our warts at the position, hopefully. And that's that. Anybody else that should talk about? Any names you guys are curious, drop them in chat as well. And I have takes on everybody, so have no fear. Jack Besh was a guy at TCU who really jumped out to me. We could look up the numbers because we got time here. And hopefully you guys don't mind looking at an incredibly small Google sheet here, but this is the level of nerdery I do to be good at what I do. So you get to see it here firsthand. The issue with Jack Bech, not a great target earner. 25% target per out run at TCU last year. For comparison, Savion Williams, who was not very good, did get targeted a lot more at 33%. Big body dude. He just commanded targets more. But Bech had a good RES, 9.5 RES for him. Shocking to see for a guy who is, a white dude. Frankly, it's what it is. But really a high RES for anybody, though. And 0.67 EPA per target is incredibly high. He played mostly out of the slot, or had the best results out of the slot, rather, with a 0.9 EPA there. But still a 0.45 EPA per target out wide. Was good at short-range targets, good at mid-range targets, still good downfield as well. Plus EPAs everywhere is one of the things I look for a guy. Jack Bech, not somebody I took in this draft, but I do think Jack Bech is a pretty good pick here. I think he is a threat immediately to displace a guy like Jacoby Myers, who has spiked for DFS, but I personally believe is mostly just a dude. I don't know how much is there to go around for Vegas with, for Bech, with the fact you're going to have a lot of the work going through Genty, going through Brock Bowers, obviously. That would be my concern for Bech, but I think he's going to be efficient. I think he's going to score touchdowns. Just don't think the target earning is going to be at a high level. So, ADP-wise, I think it's a bit rich for him. But as a player, I'm curious to see how he does. Frankly, though, if you're getting Luther Burden after him, I would take Burden over Bech, I think 10 times out of 10, to be honest. And I like Bech, but Burden's got a shot. Like DJ Moore could end up getting traded this summer because he was pretty mercurial last year. And Luther Burden does a lot of the stuff that DJ Moore's done historically. Short throws, kind of run after the catch kind of stuff. That's what Luther Burden's exclusively going to be doing. And we'll see how it goes for him because he did have some flaws. Wasn't a great target earner either last year. But I think Burden, taking him where they did, definitely a concern point for somebody, but definitely upside as well. Trey Harris goes. That's a nice click. We got QBs still left here. We got Jordan Love, Drake May, not that we need them. Rashad Bateman I still like. Nobody really has been added to Baltimore. It's going to contend with what he does. DeAndre Hopkins takes some red zone targets away, but I imagine he mostly becomes fancy Nelson Aguilar in that offense. So I'm going to go Bateman here to round out the receiver room as a wide receiver 5. Think he's a pretty good click here. So we have a 2-4-5-0. Have to add some tight ends here. It's a pretty live pocket to add another young RB, another Houston receiver potentially with Christian Kirk. And Christian Kirk probably more valuable in a PPR site as well. But he goes, so I guess I don't have to worry about that anymore. Because that one goes out the window pretty fast. Feeling okay at RB enough. But you got some guys here. Bashal Tutin, high avoided tackle rate guy that people want to be the Bucky in Jacksonville. He's got to pass up 2 Rashad Whites and ATN and Bigsby. It's my concern for him. Keon Coleman, your big body target for Buffalo. I think he's got some utility here as a wide receiver 6. Really the only guy who could do what he does, getting outside go ball stuff. But Tutin is kind of fun as RB5. This is a tough call for me. I am going to go Keon Coleman here. Maybe I'll regret it with Tutin. This price tag is just a little too rich for me. If you're going 150, and it's like nitpicking here when you see, he's got a 130 ADP, but like really there is a difference to it where if he's going to me after Garendo around Bigsby, sure. I think practically Bigsby's too low as well. Like there's really no reason that people are bumping Bigsby down, especially given the fact that, in terms of back archetypes, Bashal Tutin's a lot more similar to a Travis Etienne than he is Tank Bigsby. Like Bigsby has some shiftiness, but he is mostly, you get the nickname Tank because you're a power back, even if he's not a good power back. That's Tank got last year with the red zone work he did. Tutin's much more alive to absorb the ATN workload theoretically than he is, some sort of workload that Bigsby has. I just think those ADP should flatten out in general. One of my biggest theories of best ball is that when you have those ambiguous backfields, the ADP should flatten out in general. Like for one where the deal, where it's like, now it's not ambiguous. Bucky White ahead of Rashad White, or Bucky Irving rather ahead of Rashad White. Those shouldn't be close. Like Bucky Irving should clearly go many, many rounds ahead. But when you have Tennessee, when you have Tyjae Spears and Tony Pollard there, like those guys are both players that I think have a credible shot to be a guy that benefits from Cam Ward's success in that offense. I think they should be much closer in ADP than they are, even though Tony Pollard, the money he makes is probably your better outcome. And frankly, concussions for Spears, there's other things to ding him for. Zach Ertz went incredibly high here as well. Really thought he'd be a bailout tight end for me, but I'm now seeing that he went right before my pick. His ADP is like in the 150s, is it not? Am I imagining that? Zach Ertz goes 149. What a fucker, man. The people sniping in these rooms, for what it's worth, and I know people out there will disagree because there's a lot of casual people that have not spent thousands of dollars playing best ball and don't really get how it works. When you do snipe players from other teams just because you're like, well, I don't want this guy who has the QB to get this tight end or this wide receiver or whatever, you're hurting your team much more than you are the other team. Because if anything allows, it would allow me in this case to make up other stacks, to add a different tight end here, to get different in some way that makes me more unique, gives me more upside. Whereas for them, it's just a bunch of uncorrelated shit put together. So for any of you guys out there that get pride off of sniping or something, you are better off not sniping and trying to stay out of other people's way and stay in your own lane as much as possible, because that's gonna make you build better teams over the course of your entire portfolio. But I get it. Yeah, it's easy to hate those guys, and I would fully understand and be with you on that. I mean, there's one point where I was doing a stream on Splash Play, and another guy had like barely anybody watching, but had made a YouTube channel where his whole gimmick was that he would try to like snipe people on stream, and then would stream like the other player's stream or the other person streaming, and then like talk shit about him. Like, really fucking weird stuff happens in best ball, so be prepared for anything. But that's the name of the game. When you have millions up top, people will get weird. We have a 2-4-6-0 build. Really need tight end at some point because tight end has been gobbled up aggressively. Really don't love any of these guys here, but I'll take a shot at Kyle Williams. Not a guy I've taken a lot of, and I'm just going to try to have diamond hands at tight end because we will have some guys we could hit late. I mean, Gesicki here still feels fine. Mason Taylor feels fine. Likely your Jets starter here. At this point, Tyler Conklin not on the team. He's on the Chargers, so really nothing threatening Taylor with the draft capital he got. Even though I don't think he's going to be great, he'll be out there a lot. Freiermuth still viable. Strange still viable. Otten still viable. Henry. Taysom Hill, I wouldn't take that shot. He's listed as being on New Orleans, but I'm pretty sure he's a free agent. Taysom Hill spot track. Oh, no, it's the last year of his deal. He's a cut candidate. 35-year-old coming off of an ACL. I know Taysom Hill's been a Swiss Army knife weapon in previous years in fantasy when he's been at the correct position. That's a real tough one to swallow for Taysom Hill. 35 off an ACL. All right, we're on the clock here. 2-4-7-0. Okay, we need more at RB still. But tight end is really not favorable at this point. Gesicki's okay. I do like Rico Dowdle in that Carolina backfield. Leggett's too cheap here as well. But I think we're just going to add some volume at tight end. Gesicki, come on down. We know he spiked last year. He's brought back to Cincinnati as they try to keep the band together and hope the defense is going to be better, even though they've added nothing to the defense and might lose Trey Hendrickson soon. But Cincinnati here, I'm happy to take any of those guys at this point. We should get the team a read here, and I'll check some chats. We got shouts to all you guys hanging out. Appreciate you all. I will acknowledge you all more thoroughly in a moment. We got Jaden Daniels here at QB. At RB, RJ Harvey, Travion Henderson right behind him. So 2 rookies up top at RB. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, Marvin Harrison. Good top 3 in my opinion. Gesicki here, our first tight end. So we got to make up volume at tight end because we have really starved the position more than we should. And that's the big balance here. You got to fill up your buckets accordingly at each position. So if you take not a lot of early tight ends, you better take a lot of volume at tight ends. You take not a lot of early RBs, you better take more late RBs. Sort of the way that goes. Aaron Jones is our flex right now. DeAndre Swift, Jaden Higgins here, CJ Stroud. Nice Houston stack with Collins, Nico Collins, that is. Rashad Bateman, Keon Coleman, Kyle Williams, a bunch of guys here rounding out our receiver room who are more spike week guys, in my opinion. I'm cool with how the team is laid out. Just tight end is going to be a little bit of an albatross, I think. Let's see how these guys are drafted. How many players should you stack? 2-man or 3-man? You could go as high as like a 5-man stack if you want. It just depends on the team and where the ADPs are. If I were drafting, let's just theoretically, let's say I was drafting Colts. You get Colts for free. I mean, you can get Josh Downs at 90, Pittman at 110, Alec Pierce at 150 with 170 in some rooms. You get those guys late. So like you could take a 3-man stack there knowing as well that AR is not going to really feed one top target. But if you're taking like 5 guys from Philly and you're adding on top, Jahan Dotson and Johnny Wilson, like That's where you're getting a little bit thin. So it depends on the teams. For a team like Cincinnati, you could take Higgins, you could take Burrow, you could take Chase, you could take Chase Brown, you could take Gesicki, you could take Yoshivas on top of that. That'd be a QB +5. I don't think that would be insane as long as the guys were at relatively reasonable price tags. So it's all relative, but for certain teams, you don't really want to, you don't want to load up as much. Like for Pittsburgh, I don't know. I'm probably not taking anybody besides DK Metcalf and Freiermuth, and and the RBs, but I wouldn't take all of them for sure. So it depends. I got Posty Jen Stone here, one of my longtime internet pals. Best ball and bong rip season continues from Garden City, Colorado. Sorry. I was like Garden City, Orlando. I don't know what that is. Shout out Colorado. Of course, the first place I got legal weed. I went there with one of my buddies to this St. Julian Hotel in Boulder for the first legal 420. It was a good time. The best calamari I ever had was weirdly there. It was like flat sticks of calamari. It was incredible though. I forget what the place was, but shout out Colorado. And the pancake place, what is it where it's like sleep themed? They have like a really famous pancake place like called like Snooze or like Alert. I don't know, Alarm. I forget what it is, but something like that. Those are the things I remember amidst all the weed I took. It's a lot. Even by me as somebody who does indulge a good amount. Oh boy. All right, so we're on the clock here. We got 2, 4, 7, 1. Yeah, we need more at tight end, but these guys just took a lot of good tight ends. That makes sense. RBs here, not crazy about Dylan Sampson, but he's still viable. Justice Hill to me is the most legit dude here. Jerome Ford could end up with a role. J.K. Dobbins will sign somewhere at some point, but I still like Justice Hill a lot to round out a room, so I'm going to make him the click here. I think Jalen Noel would be fine. You could take Sampson. He's got a shot in an ambiguous backfield, but I don't know. For Cleveland's backfield, I really don't love any of them. But I'll take Sampson and Ford as part of rooms. I just need more projection here, and Justice Hill is the number 2 back for Baltimore, and that role still matters. Let's go back to the draft board here. Anyway, last tangent about my time in Colorado. Was there with one of my buddies and his now wife. They've been married for years and years now. And basically, like at one point, I had taken this Kool-Aid indica, and like at that point, I'd smoked, but like wasn't really aware of like the major differences between strains and stuff. And it was accidentally had an indica. I meant to get a sativa, and basically it was like we were hiking on this really big trail, and all of a sudden I was like, I can't walk anymore. Like, I just can't do this. But while I was in that state of not wanting to walk anymore on a hike, took a really beautiful photo of them. They actually had at their wedding, like it was them like holding hands on the trail. It was very beautiful behind that Colorado backdrop. So, that's where the creativity comes from weed, where you can't even walk, yet you can take beautiful photos. That's right, in the couch. That's how you remember your indicas from your sativas. I don't know what the mnemonic would be for sativa, but for the indica, in the couch is a good way to remember. All right, we've got pick 184 here. Again, we really need some tight ends, but we got still good clicks here that are hard to pass up. And again, I think we could salvage tight end late. I'll draft 5 tight ends if I have to at this point. I like Josh Palmer here as wide receiver 8. Jerome Ford as RB6 would also not be bad. I'll take that. Jerome Ford's pathway to work this year is still a very plausible one. Number one, Judkins has never been a bell cow. Got good draft capital coming in. He's going to take some early down work, but he's not maybe going to be trusted on third downs as much. Sampson coming in is coming from video game offense Tennessee. It's not going to really prepare him for the rigor of the NFL that you're going to be subjected to. So those are 2 guys to me that I think are pretty weak competition for Jerome Ford. Ford himself had to take a pay cut to stay there. So like, I don't think he's a great play by any stretch, but I think he's got out. So we'll take Jerome Ford. I should give the team a read real fast as well, so you guys know where we're at. We have very poorly stacked Washington. I can admit that, but that's fine. Jane Daniels at QB, RB, RJ Harvey, Travion Henderson as well. So again, rookie guys here that we have to make up with some more projectable volume later on. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, Marvin Harrison is our wide receiver room. At tight end, we've got Gesicki, Aaron Jones here, another RB, DeAndre Swift, another RB, making me feel a little bit better about the top 2 rookies. Jaden Higgins, CJ Stroud, Rashad Bateman, Keon Coleman, Kyle Williams rounding out the wide receiver room with some hopefully spike week upside. Justice Hill, Jerome Ford. Again, Ford, I think being free this late, still a guy for me. So that's where we are right now. Could use a lot more tight end. Gonna have to get there with volume. Could still use some more at RB. There might be a few interesting clicks left still at RB. So I might do one more RB and then just hit 3 rounds of tight end at the end. I am indeed. Outside of Philadelphia. Which is not as exciting of a place. I can say that. Guys, show some love if you can as well. Subscribe down below. Hit the like button. Again, Stochastic is supporting the world of best ball by putting these streams on the DFS channel, and I'm happy to be a part of it with them here. So, again, please show some love if you can and hit those little buttons down below because it does mean a lot to show the channel and show DraftKings as well that we're doing something unique here and valuable here. And also keep in mind, download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app now to draft your $20 best ball lineup just like I'm doing here on stream. It's a shot for a prize pool of $15 million, including $2 million of first place, $1 million to second, top 10 win 100K. So a really good deal on DraftKings. And also, if you do sign up on there and you get yourself your first draft, you also get another ticket. And even if you are an existing user, you get a free ticket basically for another shot at 15 mil in total. So check it out. DraftKings Best Ball is a good product. Again, they're making strides every year to make it better for you guys. And that's what we're looking for in Best Ball. So check it out on DraftKings. And it's always fun to act like I'm going to add value, talk about DraftKings. The biggest company in the world. But yes, do check out DraftKings. Really just a great product. They're doing a good job. All right, I really don't like Dalton Schultz, but we got correlation here with our QB. So Dalton Schultz, a tight end, fine. He was a really big disappointment for me last year. Kind of thought he would benefit from the emerging room of receivers there. You now have year 2, Cade Stover. They drafted another tight end for Houston as well, who I forget offhand, but nobody I'm like worried about. But yeah, adding more bodies to the tight end room, not great for Dalton Schultz, who was already not great last year. But we need tight ends, and tight ends, kind of like catchers in MLB, correlation is better than not. So we'll go with our Dalton Schultz click here at round 17. Yowza. Bobazza. 3 picks left here in this 20-round draft. And DraftKings, big difference between it and some other best ball sites, full point PPR as well. And frankly, for me, I just know with playing DFS for as many years as I have, I've got to be going on 10 years of playing NFL DFS at this point. Again, 7 years doing it with Stochastic. Really, you get a lot of similarities with how you know players from playing DraftKings NFL DFS. And like, I think it's a little bit easier to wrap your head around the scoring. So it's one thing I would say. We got Marshawn Lloyd coming back. Very excited to get him. He's coming up a lot in draft rooms. Has some good coach speak as well from the Coach Speak Index on Twitter. Good follow on there. But basically, coaches wanted to play him last year. They couldn't play him because he got hurt. Then also got, his appendix also burst towards the end of the season. So he got really fucked in terms of the run out. He is, again, one of the guys last year I was the highest on alongside Bucky Irving and Jaden Daniels. Didn't work out. I'm not chasing him quite as much this year, but he is basically free in drafts. And in a lot of rooms lately, he's getting steamed up to the 170s, maybe in 160s, depending on the platform. So I think the fact that you could get him for free sometimes on DraftKings, people aren't paying attention. Got him here at pick 208. It's something that adds some value. That's that. I will quickly also plug, guys, my OddsShopper account here. So did just launch this. Basically what I'm doing is populating it with various news alerts and things and little things I think add value, like the sheet here of the playoffs cheat sheet. Here's your week 15, week 16, week 17 matchups for every team. If you want to download that and have it on your phone, you can screen grab it on YouTube if you want, and it works well enough for you. But if you get it on my OddsShopper Tails page, just search Spags on OddsShopper Tails. I don't know how else you get there. But basically, I'm just going to put all my alerts on here. You also get access to my Discord and see the alerts on there too. So I'm trying to make it a valuable thing. And basically, that's going to be where I post all my takes for football the entire offseason. And there's going to be a lot more come training camp where I'm obsessively following everything. I read The Athletic more than athletic employees do come July and August because that's where I think the edge is. So that's what you get from me if you join my Tails package on here. And it does support what I'm doing too, which is a lot of bullshit. A lot of shit. I feel like I'm gambling at a high level right now with like best ball is it doesn't ever come easy, but like I've done it for enough years now where it works well. But like I finished really well in MLB yesterday. I've had a lot of close calls in NBA over the last few weeks. So like I feel like I'm running well right now. Can't say I'm running hot because you need to actually win to run hot, but I'm running positively, running competently. Sometimes all we can ask. Woody Marks, a guy I'll point out here who just a disappointment to me as a USC alum. Coming out of college, just really no juice, no avoided tackles, really. I think he might have been, look at the numbers here real fast. He was under 10%. No, he's at a 12% avoided tackle rate, had a positive EPA, but not the highest one here. Barely positive EPA in the pass game where he got a lot of opportunity. Was okay versus an 8-man box. He, to me, actually grades out like shittier Joe Mixon does Woody Marks. Again, USC guy, I hate to throw USC guys under the bus because like I'm not gonna like pump them up better than they are, but I want to see them be good. I just like he gets drafted and like after watching him for an entire year, I'm like, why? Like I don't know. I would take Jarquez Hunter here over him. I'd take the shot. Your best hope for Marks is that Nixon goes down and Marks just absorbs the workload and is similarly inefficient, but gets a lot of volume. That can work. Ollie Gordon here going in the 19th round. Basically, he is now your Miami contingent value to contingent value. Faint shot that he takes some goal line work away from Achane, but I think what's most likely here is he's now the backup behind Jalen Wright / competition for that Jalen Wright role behind Achane. And Gordon was a guy who really disappointed, I think, in his last year of college. He was like a star player in college DFS, I know in particular, year before last. This year, really an efficient guy. I don't think it's the most exciting to get people taking him. But to me, like I would rather have the Marshawn Lloyd. I'd also, frankly, rather have the Nick Chubb at this point than assume a rookie will be in the hunt to get any work at all at this stage of the game. They have to be sort of a clear pathway to being a backup. Like Giddens, I think, a viable pure handcuff play here. More so to me than Ollie Gordon. Marks, I get as a backup, but I think he's really just a backup. All right, we're on the clock here. Another tight end goes. Juwan Johnson is a player at tight end, and he got big money for some reason from the new regime coming in. So Juwan Johnson we will take here as our third tight end, adding him on top to Mike Gesicki, Dalton Schultz, and Juwan Johnson. It's not the best tight end room we've ever had, but again, we're going to make it up with volume. 4 tight ends of middling value, or at least starters, is better than 3 tight ends who suck. I don't know. I don't know what the case I'm going to make is, but there's a case. Try to make sure you can see these last few picks. There we go. And once again, guys, hit that like button, subscribe down below. Does go a long way here for me, just trying to make sure we see that Stochastic is aware of best ball and how good it is to gamble. And again, it's a game where the edge is a little bit simpler to figure out for the most part. So frankly, just play DFS, move over to best ball when you're not playing DFS. It's the way to do it, especially if you're willing to pay attention. If you are like me, you're obsessed with all the news alerts that go on in the NFL throughout the year. It is a year-long sport more than any at this point. So join the best ball. It's a great time to play. And especially playing on DraftKings this year where they are giving you a lot of chances. So really keep your eyes peeled for the happy hour deals when you open the daily fantasy app. They have them sometimes up top, the promotions thing. They'll also send out alerts or emails sometimes. But they've been really good, I think, about making that feel eventized. And I know from like guys in my Discord, they saw yesterday the play action thing and like guys were like sharing with each other and talking about, you got to do this. Like you're going to get a good amount of free entries if you pay attention this year in DraftKings best ball, which I think is a big positive for people. Just given the volatility of sport and all that. Darius Slayton goes here in round 19. Still like him as a pick, though New York bringing in Gabe Davis is a little bit of a concern for that. Just another guy who could take up some routes outside and a team that's clearly playing for the coaches and the GM's jobs at this point. My big guess for the Giants, which I don't think I've said on the Stochastic streams yet. I think what happens, they open the year starting with Russell Wilson. I think at a certain point, he either gets hurt or just ineffectiveness. They go to Jameis Winston. And then once the year is kind of at the end and they're either barely 500, not close to making the playoffs, or they're just fully out of it, that's when they pull the lever and play Jackson Dart. But I think no matter who they're getting out there, it's going to be a guy who can get the ball outside to a downfield outside receiver like Darius Slayton, and especially a guy who can get open pretty easily. You have Malik Neighbors drawing probably more and more attention in year 2 and as the season goes on. So I like Slayton a good amount as your free wide receiver 7, wide receiver 8. Surprised he honestly stayed in the Giants and got the money he did, but he's staying on the Giants and got decent money. So that's the pick. One more pick here. Again, thinking of tight end. We've got a few legit ones. You really can fuck around and find out, and I guess not find out at tight end, because you could push tight end and just get a bunch of dudes. So Jatavian Sanders, starting tight end for the Carolina, that feels okay. Cole Kmet, gonna certainly have Colston Loveland coming for him pretty fast, but he's got big money still in the mix. Mayer needs to get traded somewhere. That hasn't happened. Theo Johnson is the one I like the most here, though. Think he's got the potential for a very good run out, just absorbing some touchdowns that are going to go basically his way because there's nobody else there who's open. So I'm going to go to Theo Johnson here. He'll be my final pick. We did not stack up Jaden Daniels, which is a flaw for me for sure. Would have liked to have done it, but we got even sniped on Luke McCaffrey. So I'm not taking like pure assholes for them. Like Jalen Lane, I don't think is really a play, but anyway. Team here so far, or I guess final team here, a 2-7-7-4 build. We got Jaden Daniels at QB, again, best player in football, in my opinion, last year relative to ADP. He's way more expensive this year, but he works. RJ Harvey, Travion Henderson here, a little bit rookie heavy at top at RB. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, Marvin Harrison Jr., so a good wide receiver room start there. That's a sacrifice you make when you get the benefit of you're sacrificing an RB. Tight end Mike Gesicki as part of our thin tight end room. Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift, Jaden Higgins, CJ Stroud, Rashad Bateman, Keon Coleman, Kyle Williams, Justice Hill here to help us get some projection in at RB. Jerome Ford, Dalton Schultz, Marshawn Lloyd, Juwan Johnson, Theo Johnson here. The Johnson boys helping us get there at tight end. I like this team. I think it's a fun team. Again, could have been a little bit better balanced at RB, but that's going to happen sometimes. That's the last team here for the day, guys. So I'll be back again on Tuesday doing streams. I'll also be on my @SplashPlay pod channel, which I will link in the chat right now because I would love you guys to come over to my YouTube channel to come hang out. I do some drafts tomorrow. This is my Twitter. I don't want to link that. I I can link that, but it doesn't really matter as much. But check me out @SplashPlayPod tomorrow. We'll be on there doing some drafts for best ball, probably a mix of sites on there. But go check out DraftKings more than anything here. They helped me put on the show today, and they really are doing a good job in best ball. Again, right now you can download the daily fantasy app from DraftKings and get a ticket to play for $15 million for $20. Then you get another one for free. So 2 shots to play for 15 mil right away on DraftKings. That's the deal they're going to have going all summer long. So it is a good one on there. Go check them out. They're doing a good job for the best ball community, and that's what we're looking for here as people that are actively in that space. Check out the NBA Live Before Lock show coming up later today for the Showdown. MLB Live Before Lock coming up as well. And come back with me on Tuesday for another best ball stream. I'll also be on some MLB streams coming up. So watch one of them. Make sure to gamble responsibly, guys, even though, it's always money time here. Follow me at Chris Spags. Follow Stochastic Everything. And I'll see you guys again soon. Enjoy your days. Good luck. And bye-bye. It's going to end soon.